a few coming in. There's still a few coming in, and our clock is, okay. She's got her phone. I do believe we're just about ready. We got our act together. Good morning. Welcome to the Treasure Coast Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Stuart, Florida. Today is September 18th, 2022. My name is Janet Grote, and I will be your worship associate today. We are a welcoming congregation. We welcome people of all gender identities, ethnicities, ages, and backgrounds. It's wonderful to see all our vaccinated members in the sanctuary. We're on YouTube too. To be put on our email list or to find out more information about us, go to our website at tcuuc.org. We have lights. Note the email link to request our online newsletter. Please remember to silence your cell phones. And hi, YouTubers. We may have some visitors here today. Nope, I don't see anybody brand new. I think Sage has introduced herself, so. But we are wanting to welcome all our newer people especially. We've got some announcements. Are you considering a membership at TCUUC? October 9th would be a good time to sign our book and to reap all the rewards of membership. Reverend Bob suggests meeting briefly after the October 2nd service to talk about it. Join us September 27th in the early evening for hors d'oeuvres, our gathering, which is, we're doing the fourth Tuesday of each month. Bring snacks to share and beverages of your choice. Richard, are you coordinating that? Richard was here. Yeah, are you coordinating that? Is it 4 to 6, the hors d'oeuvres? Oh, well, boy, I tell my husband that a lot. On the 27th, is it 4 to 6 that the time is for the hors d'oeuvres? Okay, good. And our Tai Chi classes are now being offered on Friday mornings. The charge is $10. See Judy Bajoris, who's normally here, but I don't see her. And as usual, join us the first and third Tuesday at Stewart's Veterans Memorial Park downtown at noon for our brown bag lunch. And after our regular service next Sunday, the 25th, Tia Breeding will talk about her experiences while stationed in Japan. And Fridays at 11, join the weekly Zoom current events discussion with Reverend Bob. Contact him or see the link in the newsletter. And a big thanks for those who helped with the service today. Jackie Robbins for our music, our greeters and ushers, and thank you, Richard, for being our greeter. Our host, Karina Poloni, and our tech wizard, Spirit is always here, Chris McGann, and Margaret Gregory for our coffee and cookies on the porch. And here is our prelude. Oh, how did I miss lighting the candle? No, we're going to do that after the prelude.
This is J.S. Bach, as usual.
Thank you, Jackie. Now, we want to welcome back Reverend John Brown, who will be in our pulpit today. John did his undergraduate work at Union College in Barbourville, Kentucky. Hard not to say Bourbonville. He read this and then told me that when he was there, the county was dry. He receives his doctorate in religion from Claremont School of Theology in California. He began his ministry in 1964 and has served churches in Kentucky, New York, and Connecticut. Presently, he is a ministerial affiliate at the Vero Beach UU congregation, where he has facilitated groups and has, of course, preached. He and Maggie, his wife, have 4 adult children and 8 grandchildren. Oh, and 9 great-grandchildren. Wow. We'll light the chalice now. Even as the days grow shorter, we light this chalice to kindle a flame of warmth as a reminder of the connection that draws us in to a community that opens us up, in gratitude for the breath in our lungs and for the love in our hearts, for the gift of this day. You know that our Unitarian Universalist sources includes Jewish and Christian teachings, humanist teachings, and today, let us honor our 6th source, the spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions, which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. The autumn equinox, not to be confused with the solstice, arrives this week on Thursday, the 22nd. Reverend Kathleen Rollis said, "Throughout history, we have moved to the rhythms of mystery, wonder, prophecy, wisdom, and teachings from ancient and modern sources, and from nature herself." Explore Deeply tells us the word equinox comes from Latin and means equal night, referring to the roughly 12-hour day and the 12-hour night that occurs on the only 2 equinoxes of the year. On the equinox, we will honor the balance and interaction of the light and the dark, and may we feel gratitude for the changes that come with the passage of time. As we consciously link our awareness to the cycles of nature, our understanding of our own cycles begin to deepen. Spiritually speaking, fall represents the harvest time. Our lives go through cycles of growth, harvest, death, and rebirth, as we see in nature. We ask, as our planet stands upon the edge of enormous change and transformation, each one of us has choices to make. How will we face the great turning of our times? Hymn. Stand if you would like, if you're comfortable, to sing a hymn through our Mass or not through our Mass. Number 149, Lift Every Voice and Sing.
It's not one more step into. Sorry. Give me one moment, please, sorry. We're having the technical difficulties with the digital world.
Well, and here's Chris McGann, our whiz. She's got it.
Play.
Voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise of misty skies. Sing a song full of hopes that the President brought us. Is the rising sun of our great become. Let us proclaim till victory is won. Through the hope each one bear the trusting rod, fill till the days bring hope unborn and done. Yet with a steady beat, lift our weary feet to the grace for which our Father sighed. We have come, great and tears has been born. We have come,
Let us recite our affirmation, speaking the first verse and singing the second. Love is the spirit of this church and service of its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Hey.
We're going to share our joys and sorrows, but first, sorrow. Judy Saloni's husband, Phil, died this weekend after a long struggle. Reverend Bob and all of us send our love and support to Judy. And we'll move a stone for Judy. And for those of you who are here, please step up to the microphone. Tell us your name first and your joy or sorrow, and move a stone in our symbolic river of life to mark each joy or sorrow. Of course, keep it personal and brief.
This is for my little niece, great niece, actually Fiona, who had to cancel her third birthday party because she got COVID. And she was vaccinated, she was doing fine, she had a little bit of a fever for a couple days. Her parents so far haven't gotten it, and very happy. So I want to give this to, this is for Fiona. And I also want to say, my nephew lives in Brooklyn. And they have a small, really small apartment. And every Wednesday we have a Zoom with them, and we have done it through phone, you know. And what they have gone through, working full time at home, taking care of their daughter, it just made me realize how much parents have gone through. You know, luckily we're hopefully heading into better times, but parents who have just stepped up and done what they had to do. Like, can you imagine having your first kid and then COVID, you know? And so parents have done just a wonderful time taking care of their kids in a very difficult time. So one's for Fiona and one's for all the parents for the message that they've done.
I don't know who messed with the mic. Hi, I'm Christopher. I think most people know me by now. I have a joy and a sorrow today. The sorrow's pretty recent. I don't know if you guys saw me in the parking lot with a sheriff's deputy, but my joy is that yesterday my older mother decided she wanted a firearm for protection, so we went and got our concealed weapons permits. So that might be a little controversial, but I was happy to do that. She was really excited. She's never fired a gun before. But on the way here this morning, I had a gentleman threaten to shoot me right out there in the parking lot. So that was a little interesting, kind of coincidental. So be careful out there.
Chris,
Yeah.
our parking lot?
Well, I stopped to turn in the parking lot, and he got out of his car. Well, actually, he didn't get out of the car, but it was as I was turning in here. It happened on Central. So some crazy people over in Villabella, watch out. So I'll move a stone for being happy for my mother, and also being a little sorrowful that people in the world are so worked up that something as simple as passing them in traffic results in threats of physical violence.
On Central Parkway. Yeah.
Today, I'm Karen. I have a sorrow to share. My cousin Sonia, she and her family had an 18-year-old son who finally lost his life to cancer this past week, and so I wanted to move a stone in remembrance of him, and I can't even imagine what they're going through losing a child at such a young age.
Hi, I'm Pam. I want to give you a joy of mine, which is that I delivered to the Dreyfus School of the Arts in West Palm Beach 25 cameras from this church. You all should be proud of yourselves. The cameras go to the photography department, where students that can't afford a camera, they will be given a camera once they graduate, and the cameras that you gave, they use. And I'm not talking about Instamatics. People here gave good cameras, the kind with lenses, and the photography department wants their students to start from rock bottom. That was 25 cameras from this church, plus one check from a member of this church that said, I don't have a camera to give, could I just give them the money? And secondly, I went on vacation and learned about a saint. The saint is called Saint Agatha. Ask me about Saint Agatha from the 13th century. Thank you.
Linda? Oh, Jackie.
Hi, I'm Jackie, and today would have been, well, my parents were married in 1945 in Australia by an army chaplain, because the rabbi there didn't believe he was Jewish, so needed some documents from Brooklyn. In any case, today is their anniversary, and this is my parents, who are no longer with us.
Some of you know my grandson Ian joined the Navy. Kind of surprised us. He was in college. He's a very bright boy. Wasn't doing too well in college, and he just passed. He's in nuclear school for nuclear training in Charleston, and he just passed through the first phase. He's competing with the top recruits all across the country, so it's a really big deal. And we were kind of worried he's just made it through A school. And so the family's up there this weekend. His dad's giving him his pickup truck, because the Navy's finally allowing him to have a vehicle. And I just want to say I'm actually impressed with the U.S. Navy. They've added 2 more weeks to boot camp to teach the kids how to read and write and all the things that they didn't learn in high school. So my impression of the Navy's improved. Thank you.
U.S. Navy.
And for those whose joys or sorrows are too private to share, know that our hearts are with you. And here is Reverend John Brown for a pastoral reading.
Our theme this morning touches on that of freedom. What does freedom really mean? And when we stop and examine the word freedom, are we free as individuals within our own denomination? We're going to examine that and talk about that this morning. I'd invite, for those who would like to read the responsive reading on page 592, we will continue to touch on this theme because the topic is titled The Free Mind, 592 in the back of your hymn books. I call that mind free which masters the senses and which recognizes its own reality and greatness, which passes life, not in asking what it should eat or drink, but in hungering, thirsting, and seeking after righteousness. I call that mind free which jealously guards its intellectual rights and powers, which does not content itself with a passive or hereditary faith, which opens itself to light whensoever it may come, which receive new truth as an angel from heaven. I call that mind free which is not passively framed by outward circumstances and is not the creature of accidental impulse, which discovers everywhere the radiant signatures of the infinite Spirit, and in them finds help to its own. I call that mind free which protects itself against the usurpations of society and which does not cower to human opinion, which refuses to be the slave or tool of the many or of the few, and guards its empire over itself as nobler than the empire of the world. I call that mind free which resists the bondage of habit, which does not mechanically copy the past nor live on its old virtues, but which listens for new and higher and rejoices to pour itself forth in fresh and higher exertion. I call that mind free, which sets no bounds to its love, which, wherever they are seen, delights in virtue and sympathizes with suffering, which recognizes in all human beings the image of God and the rights of God's children, and offers itself up a willing sacrifice to the cause of humankind. I call that mind free, which has cast off all fear but that of wrongdoing, and which no menace or peril can enthrall, which is common in the midst of tumults, and possess itself through all else be lost.
Now we will do our Spirit of Life, number 123. Well, we sang twice. That's good. We love those words, Spirit of Life. Now, Karen Olish is going to come up and stand up at least and lead our teens out for a bit of religious education. We could sing, "Go now in peace." Me neither. Peace. We're going to have to add that back, I'd say. Now it is time for the offering. The purpose of the church is to encourage all who gather there to grow more generous in spirit and in action. This is the great end of all the world's faith traditions, to bring human beings closer to the divine acts of creation and compassion. We will now take an offering that allows us to exercise that all-important spirit of generosity, an offering that will support this self-supporting church. Thank you, Jackie, and thank all of you for the offering. We couldn't make it without you. Now, again, here is Reverend John Brown.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Janet, and it's so nice to be with all of you again to bring this sermon entitled The Freedom Dilemma. Well, when we all stop and reflect on this word freedom, we certainly realize that we base its meaning on context and experience and really personal meaning. This can be really a dilemma, since freedom really is a complex concept. When examining freedom, we ask ourselves, are we, each and every one of us, truly free? Are we? Can I do anything, anytime, anywhere, well, the way I want to and when I want to? Well, the answer is unquestionably no, and hence the dilemma. Well, let me illustrate this particular thought with a personal event. Several years ago, my wife and I lived in Westport, Connecticut, which I believe to be a safe, comfortable suburb of New York City. And the neighbors on the street were comprised of really delightful people. Oh, that included a lawn maintenance individual, a social worker, a doctor, inventor, a musician, as well as other people who worked in the community and outside of Westport. And one day, my neighbor called me and asked if I left my car unlocked all night. Strange question. I said, yes, I did. And he warned me that a small group of people came into our neighborhood last night and broke into all the unlocked cars and stole items left in them. Oh, I want to tell you, a feeling of panic overcame me. Did I leave my important documents, money, or other valuable belongings inside the glove compartment? I immediately went to my car, and thankfully, nothing of high value was stolen. My neighbor came over to see my outcome, and he let me know that his wife's bag containing her purse and important identification documents, including her Social Security card, was taken from the car. I will never forget the distraught look on his face, and I could sense his shock, his fear, and anxiety from the traumatic experience. And fortunately, he was able to move on from that experience in part. Last year, someone took advantage of their freedom, my freedom that is, and took my Social Security number. How they obtained it is still a mystery. I received a personal letter from a nationally owned bank thanking me for opening a savings account, a checking account, and obtaining a credit card. Well, the only problem was I didn't open the accounts. I was, again, in a state of shock. I had no idea who the person was and how they could open accounts in my name. I became frightened, I became angry, and for a while I was in a state of actual disbelief. Wait a second. My freedom, it seemed at the time, felt like it was gone. I felt overwhelmed by this person, by this stranger, and manipulated by the power I believed they had over me, making me feel like a helpless prisoner by their actions. Making me feel helpless? I began to wrestle with a dilemma, feeling victimized. They have taken my freedom. No, wait a second. My feelings are my responsibility, not theirs. What this person did certainly was unethical or wrong, but I was giving them control over my well-being, which I needed to stop doing. And fortunately, this voice of freedom came alive within me and reminded myself to take responsibility for my feelings and, above all, my behavior. There was a solution. I contacted the Social Security office and discovered, my Social Security number can never be changed. A dead end. I thought, well, I will go to my bank. And with these new accounts taken out by this individual and bring this to the attention, not my bank, excuse me, it was that person's bank, because I received a letter stating the name of the bank, and they had a local branch in my community. And the bank confirmed that the accounts were opened online in my name, that they did not know the person who did this unlawful act, and emphasized that they were sorry that this happened to me. Now, I did go to my bank. I said, I've got to take charge here and have them become aware of the situation and see what they can actually do for me. My bank told me that they could notify me on a daily basis if my real accounts had suspicious activity or in any way was compromised, and even to this day, they still inform me on a daily basis about the amount of money and what's been withdrawn and what's been invested. I was also fortunately a member of a group called Identity Guard who contacted the bank with the 3 accounts on my behalf. And we were able to get on the bank and talk to the bank manager, and we were able to close all those accounts. But I must tell you, still at this point, I have my identity. I'm still John, and still a minister, still a father and grandfather and great-grandfather. So that seems resolved, but the issue is not resolved. We still do not know who has my Social Security number. So am I free from this event? I am definitely not. My Social Security number is still out there somewhere and not under my control, which is really an emotional dilemma for me. So let's review what freedom truly is and how free we are in this day and this time. And I like this statement that freedom has been called a sacred gift. That's very important to me, and I value that. It has also been defined as the absence of necessity, coercion, or constant constraint or choice or action. And one definer even said, being free may mean that you have full control of yourself, your mind, your body, and emotions. And yet, do we really experience that full control? That has not been the case with the individual who used my Social Security number and perhaps other personal information. For I think it's common in today's society to think of personal freedom as the right to do anything we want to do, when we want to do it. But in reality, we all know as adults and caring adults that there are limits. There is an amusing story of a father who had an insight. He had just finished his meal at a local restaurant when he realized that he left his wallet in his truck. As he headed out the door to get the money, he told the waitress what had happened. "Oh, but don't worry, I have a way to handle this. I'm leaving my son for collateral." She looked at the boy. The boy winked at the waitress, feeling he was free from his part in the father's problem. She turned back and she looked to the father. "What else do you have?" Well, that idea did not completely work, but she was able to pay the waitress. The concept of freedom reminds us, for example, that the law places certain limits on us to some extent, and that certainly was the case with this man. For this father's conscience really became aware, and he had to do something, and he did. There are people who are in positions of power who believe that they can operate within their own definition of the law. We know some of these people. And that type of freedom infringes on the ideals of law. For others, freedom of speech means we can say whatever we want as long as it doesn't qualify as slander, libel, or perjury. How many times have we heard, "Oh, it's a free country, I can do what I want to," when someone's behavior is called out for being less than kind? We are called to fight for the freedom of others, and yet we realize, especially as citizens of this country and Unitarians, that people are still denied jobs, loans, and rentals on the basis of their race, gender, or sexual preference. This sounds like freedom is limited. And that is true because the bottom line is that none of us are totally free, are we? And I'm sure I don't need to tell you, when the Declaration of Independence was written in 1776, the self-evident truth that all people are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But weren't those truths merely aspirational? Many of those African descent were enslaved. Only landowners were allowed to vote, and when women could not own land. And those who once lived on the simple same lands where the Declaration of Independence was penned and signed were called Indian savages. Some black men and transgender people are still killed at an alarming rate. Women still are not free to make decisions about their own lives, especially their bodies, and we know that that is certainly evident in the Supreme Court decision regarding Roe versus Wade. In our country, we are still from all really being equal. Native Americans are still denied the right to control whether oil pipelines run across the land given to them by the U.S. government after the same government forcibly took ownership of their ancestral lands. Doing what we want when we want it and not considering the outcomes or consequences of our freedom is a costly endeavor. You know this song by Frank Sinatra entitled "My Way"? Well, it's interpreted as, "It is my life and my way, and what's it to you?" One cannot have freedom, though, without responsibility. Responsibility refers to an obligation to certainly perform certain functions in order to achieve certain results. As Unitarian Universalists, we not only have a civic responsibility, but a moral imperative to establish freedom of our global community. Our sixth principle states that we are to affirm and to promote the goal of world community with peace, love, and justice for all. So as to be globally responsible, it is important to, first of all, to acknowledge the freedom within. To pursue the freedom within us is certainly an important exercise. For Socrates supposedly said the unexamined life is really not worth living. Therefore, I believe we all need to understand what it means to be inwardly free, and that involves, I believe, being responsible. Ideally, when we are asked to choose in life, we make our choices based on the duties we love to fulfill within ourselves. Therefore, we need to make life choices with the thought that we will approach responsibility, and I love these words, with love, care, and justice. Many times we make decisions or choices. We may experience pressure, stress, or anxiety in making the responsible choice. However, hopefully as we accept our responsibilities, we gain a sense of fulfillment, a sense of meaning and hope. And we will try the very best of our ability to certainly be dependable, keeping our word and maintaining the commitments we made. Jordan Peterson, a psychologist, says, the physical posture of responsibility is to stand up straight with your shoulders back. And that involves accepting the responsibility of life with eyes wide open. It means adopting the burden of self-conscious vulnerability and accepting the end of the unconscious paradise of childhood, where finitude and mortality are only dimly comprehended. It means willingly undertaking the sacrifices necessary to generate a productive and certainly a meaningful reality. We need to move from freedom to be socially responsible. We are a covenant faith, and therefore I hope we agree that all of us, each and every one of us, have the responsibility to treat each other and the world in a certain way. There is no doubt that the 7 principles emphasize this commitment to be socially responsible. They are, each person is important. Be kind in all you do. We're free to learn together and search for what is true. Each person has a voice. Build a fair and peaceful world. We care for Earth's lifeboat. As responsible Unitarian Universalists and responsible citizens, we, each and every one of us, are invited to exercise our freedom of religion. And as part of our covenant with each other, we agree to affirm and to promote the free and responsible search for truth as members or friends of this congregation. As members or friends of this faith group, are we not called to be responsible each moment, each time when we are asked to be responsible in our daily life? And this leads me to my final point. What are some ways of feeling free while being responsible? Well, first of all, I really believe that we need to be mindful that we are having this freedom of dilemma because all of us, everyone here, are historically free to some large extent. I believe that's very important, not to overlook that, but to remember that. We need to celebrate that we can go more places, make lots of choices, and make changes in our lives more than most people ever made before. I am not saying that we should be individuals that should do whatever we want to do when we want to do it. I am saying that we are free to choose many activities in our life, and above all, meaning in the various endeavors in this journey we all participate in, called life. What else can we do to be mindful in diminishing the infringements on our freedom? I believe it is important that we look at the script of taking responsibility initially. So when the church leaders ask us, or when our friends or our employees ask us, we need to stop and to reflect on their request. We need to ask ourselves, does my choice grow out of love, hope, or creativity? I believe it is important in some cases to take into account of the emotion called fear, because fear infringes on our sense of responsibility. Do I want that emotional script to be in my repertoire or somebody else's? And how does it diminish or stop that feeling? Next, it's important to remind ourselves that in many cases, we can change a feeling while pursuing freedom. You can often put the emotional brakes on and carefully feel when somebody or something asks us to take a responsibility. Feel is a word a friend of mine uses, which means to stop, think, and feel about the request given to us. And we stop and feel before we take the first step. I use my imagination in this approach before I say yes to many requests, but not all the time, to various people. You and I are free to take some time and give some thought to a request from others. Pausing before you accept a responsibility is important. Decisions might sabotage really our sense of freedom needed to really live this life fully. So we need to stop and maybe obtain more information from that person, or maybe somebody who's connected with that group or that organization. We need to learn some lessons from the role models of people who are having to face this dilemma associated with freedom. There's no doubt that in my mind, a woman right now who's struggling with freedom, who we've seen on television and we've read about, and this is the First Lady in Ukraine, First Lady Olena Zelenska. She is engaged in projects for the people of Ukraine. She has devoted herself to helping the country cope with its traumas, both collective as well as personal. She is trying to launch a government initiative to make psychological support available to every single Ukrainian. She will not be emotionally incarcerated, though, by the Russians, even though she and her family have had their lives threatened, and I believe her lives are still being threatened by the Russians. How did and how does she work through this freedom dilemma? Here is an important lesson. She is expressive of her feelings. They're not kept inside. When she had trouble reaching loved ones and was not able to find out where they were, even if they had survived, she said, that was probably the first time I did get in touch with my feelings and I cried. First time I let my emotions go. I just couldn't take it. When we reflect on the life of this great woman, we can also see that she acknowledged the dilemma of feeling trapped versus totally free. She stepped out of herself and started helping others. She became involved in a program to help others psychologically. So in closing, as Unitarians, we are responsible for trying to transform unjust, unsustainable, and inhumane systems. And to some degree, we become a solutionary. And a solutionary is someone who is able to identify inhumane and unsustainable systems, then develop solutions that are healthy and just for people, animals, and environment. Solutionary is not synonymous with problem solver. Some problem solvers might be able to solve, say, an engineering challenge in order to extract fossil fuels more cost effectively, but that won't make them solutionaries. Solutionaries are motivated by compassion and justice and driven to cultivate their creative, critical, strategic systems, thinking skills to address the underlying causes of entrenched and interconnected problems. There is deep liberation and joy that comes from a mindset where taking responsibility is not a chore, but is really an opportunity. We, you and I, elevate ourselves when we happily live in a way that recognizes our interconnectedness, when we assume responsibility for our impact on other people and the world around us, both visible and invisible. We discover a kind of peace that comes from living with integrity. Our inner voice creatively addresses the freedom dilemma. And that voice tells us to take responsibility, not tomorrow, not the next day, but to take responsibility now. And certainly does not need to be like that of a scolding parent, but rather a voice that is supportive and one that is nurturing us when we take the responsibility. For you and I, hopefully, will listen and follow the mature voice within us, reminding us, each and every one of us, that we can build better societies in which all may thrive through the choices we make and the actions we take every day. Amen. May we turn to page 145 or sing together in unison, Tranquil Streams. Tranquil streams that meet and merge and flow as one that seek the sea, our kindred hearts and minds unite to build a church that shall be free, free from the bonds that bind the mind to narrow thought and lifeless greed, free from a social code that fails to serve the cause of human need, a freedom that reverse the past but trust the dawning future more, and bids the soul in search of truth and venture boldly and explore. Prophetic church, the future waits your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love, proclaim the truth that makes us free. We, each and every one of us, are blessed with an abundance of good things, for which we are truly thankful, as long as we remember them. We are privileged, each and every one of us, with great freedom and power, for which in return we are called to act responsibly. We are lucky to have shared this time and this space together, because we are lucky to have each other. Go now in peace and hope, and may the spirit of this place and these friends go with us into this busy world. Amen.
to the front porch for coffee and cookies and